Welcome back. Years ago, when my wife Lola moved out with our kids out of the house, one of the hardest thoughts I had to face was the fact, this thought that what if giving my wife the space she wants is exactly how I lose my marriage? Because at that point, she had asked for space, right? But what if this is like the fear just completely overwhelmed my overall existence? Like, what if I get accused of not fighting for my marriage later on? These are all thoughts. And but anyway, years later, together with her, we were working with a husband whose wife started talking about separation, and his instinctive uh, action was basically to push counseling, to ask her for counseling, because he believed that separation would make divorce inevitable. And that fear makes perfect sense, right? Just like it was for me years before that, prior to that, right? But it can also create a dangerous trap because you see, when your wife or your husband asks for space, your choices are not simply either to fight harder or disappear. Most people will claim to use common sense based tactics and strategies, will say it's either one or the other. They pick one, because they have to pick from. Anyway, today I want to show you how to know when backing off becomes leadership, all right, and when it becomes abandonment. All right, so I'm going to show you what we call the separation pressure cycle, and it's triggered by space. The separation pressure cycle. All right, and what is this? It's triggered by space. All right, and let me just go ahead and show you what this looked like from a place of space. When somebody asks you for a space, what happens? If you're a normal human being, you go straight to panic, right? Yep, panic and fear, right? And when you panic, what happens? You chase even more, right? You start chasing, you start begging. So, well, what's wrong with chasing? Well, it's usually motivated by fear, right? Right? It's different from pursuit, which is motivated by desire, right? So now, from a place of chasing, you are now effectively creating pressure, right? And pressure will create withdrawal. Let me just go ahead and show you this whole thing, right? Withdraw, withdraw, okay, and withdrawal leads to pressure. Well, is it pressure first? No, actually, before withdrawal, you have pressure. There you go. So the chasing is received on the other end as pressure, and it is then that the pressure leads to withdrawal. Okay, and the withdrawal leads to distance, right? Distance, and then the cycle gets bigger and bigger. Distance obviously leads to more space. It gets worse. And this is the reality of many people facing marriage in a bad place where somebody has asked you for space. It gets weirder, it gets worse. And if you're in a space right now where your wife or your husband has asked for space, your specific circumstances, right? It's very important. We need to know you need to know what that is, because it matters tremendously, because that's what's going to determine your next best move, right? You might be in a place where somebody is already sleeping in another room, right? And that situation will be different from a situation where somebody has completely moved out. And a temporary cool-off period is different from an active divorce being filed. Somebody's already filed for paperwork, right? Or they're preparing, they're already talking to divorce lawyers, right? And shared children, space, finances will be different from somebody dealing with an affair, right? Unresolved betrayal. What about that, right? Situations where somebody is just expressing all this resentment from years ago, or maybe they're actually giving you mixed signals, right? Depending on what your situation is, everybody's story is different, and the right way to move, the right thing to do next will literally it depends on your specific situation. All right. And how much do you need to back off? How much of that is going to become an abandonment, where somebody says, hey, you actually never cared about me? If this is creating a lot of confusion for you, I understand. You want to go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Let me put that here for you. Getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Yep. You want to go there and book one of the private discovery sessions with me personally. What happens? You get 60 minutes with me, and we'll get to dive in deeper into your specific story. We can spend some time. We'll help you look at the actual stage of your marriage crisis, the level of reciprocity that still exists, and where your energy is best invested right at this moment. We don't have shortage of advices on the internet. What we have shortage of is application, implementation, accountability. Specifically, what do I need to do right now? Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and break this down into the different pieces, right? That's getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Now, we're talking about the separation pressure cycle. Okay, separation pressure cycle. What do we mean by space? You already know what we mean by space. Let's not cap, right? Let's not cap. Your husband, your wife, they need room. They've outrightly asked you for space. And not just that, they're becoming less available for affection, for connection. Maybe they've moved out, as a matter of fact. They reduce communication. They give you one-word answers. You send a text message, or you pick up your phone and you call them, and they go, what? Yeah. Not fun, right? They say, what? What do you mean, what? Oh, I was just calling just to say hello. I'm okay. Can I call you back? This is your wife. But you call them at work, right? Whatever. You call them, but they're not interested in all that, that connection stuff, where that romantic nonsense. They're not interested in any of that right now. And they've told you that, but they've given you, maybe last night, they've given you some kind of, they're giving you mixed signals. So you're thinking maybe it's time to get in there and rekindle the love that you once had, right? But anyway, they're asking you to stop altogether. They're saying, give me some space. Let me find myself. Right? So obviously that's not fun. And if you're going through that kind of situation, I'm sorry, because that's no fun. I've been there. I've been through that. And that's not fun. All right. And in that space of when somebody's asking you for space like that, what you feel is rejection, right? And it's painful, right? But here's the thing. It's still information, but you probably don't know what to do with that. What happens is that you get into this space of panic. Right? You get into this place of panic. It feels as though there's a war zone outside, like everything is about to end, like it's your worst nightmare, right? So what do? You feel not rage, but you feel powerless, right? You feel like it's about to be over, like your whole life is about to end right in front of you. What you heard was, I need space, but now you've translated that to, I'm losing my marriage. Well, you're not all the way wrong. There's a good chance you're losing your marriage, but you haven't lost the marriage, but you feel like you've lost the marriage, right? So you feel the need to do something about it right now, because right there in your face, you see divorce is coming, right? Yeah. Sometimes you feel like somebody's about to replace you. What could it be, right? You're asking all these crazy questions that you really just don't have any answers for, right? And you're saying if you don't do something right now, it will be too late. So the last thing you want to do is give your partner space. Right, they're asking for space. The last thing you want to do is give them space. So, and the number one thing you want to do is chase. Shout out to Coco Bon Bon Bunny Cute. Hi. All right, so you start chasing them, you start begging them, you start pleading. Right, right, you start pleading. The panic is creating all these activities that basically it pushes them further away. Things like more text messages. You start calling them because you're looking for reassurance, right? You start explaining more. You complain in the same breath, right? You want to have conversations about the relationship, right? You become obsessed with, because you just experienced rejection, right? So you become obsessed with just wanting to talk about the relationship. You give another apology, right? Sometimes you're not even wrong, but you give the apology that because somebody told you that, hey, there's nothing wrong. You have a lot of generic advices out there. You should be able to apologize. If you just apologize, you're like, yeah, right. Good luck, right? Because you've been apologizing for a long time, and it hasn't worked. So I'm not sure how you expect that to work now. It's probably not going to work. It's probably going to actually reduce the value of your apologies. Right? You make another request for counseling. You ask them, maybe, can we just try it one more time? Just one more time. You keep making promises that honestly you don't have the capacity to keep, right? But that's fair because you're asking for reassurance. They're asking you for space. Everything looks like your marriage is about to end. So of course you're asking for reassurance that your marriage still has another chance. But they're telling you that I don't want to talk about the marriage. Okay. So it's fair that you would ask like, hey, I need to know what I'm doing here, right? Somebody advised you that you should fight for your marriage, and that's exactly what you're trying to do, right? But there's a problem here, right? Fear is choosing timing for you. Like anything else in life, anything that we value so much, any activity that anybody has advised you to do to build, right? To build an empire, to build a business, to build a marriage, right? All of that is cool and nice and cute until you do them in the wrong timing. Well, what is going to pick this timing for you right now? Fear. What is picking this timing for you? Fear is basically driving all your actions, right? The text messages, when's the right time to drive? Well, how do you make these decisions, right? You have a ton of decisions in front of you to make. How should I work on my marriage? I need to fight for my marriage. Some people will say, no, just fight. Just say what you want. Make sure you don't let them go, right? Okay. But what happens? What is actually happening in reality? This is what's happening in reality. Pressure. Ooh. Now, obviously, this is so far away from your intentions. Like you mean no harm. You're just trying to build. You're trying to fix your marriage. You're trying to build your marriage, right? Pressure. Your intentions is not what you're seeing. You're creating pressure. How do I know you're creating pressure? Well, I handle these cases all the time. So, Yeah. So anyway, pressure. Now your wife is no longer experiencing what they're asking of. Right? I know common sense may say, but don't do that. This is a marriage, though. I know, but calm down, okay? What they're experiencing is the opposite of the space they requested for. Every interaction carries a secret assignment or obligation, right? That they clearly don't want to be a part of, right? They feel the need to respond, but they don't have the capacity to respond, at least not in the way you like, right? So that creates confusion. You're asking them to reassure you, but they don't have it, right? They want out. They're trying to run away from the marriage. You're asking them to reconsider, right? But everything, their whole action is saying no, right? Sometimes they're nice enough to tell you, not now. Let me find myself again, right? Now, is your wife or your husband, whichever one it is, right? Are they right? It's irrelevant, right? What you need to put put more attention or face the reality you need to face is that your marriage is not where it needs to be, right? Right. But you want them to reconsider. You want them to be open to talking about us. The reality is that there's no us. They're not also, to be fair, they're not being honest with you, right? They're still trying, they're leading you on somehow because they give you those mixed signals, right? But you're asking them to show you, right? You want them to show you that this is going to work. You come back from a counseling session and somehow you think that should be like, oh, we snap the finger, the marriage should be fixed right now. But what do you get met with? You get met with pressure, right? So that pressure is what you are seeing when they're withdrawing from you. You are seeing it because again, you are asking them to reassure you, to reconsider. You are asking them to take on obligations where they don't want to. So what do you do in this kind of places? It's a good question. Honestly, it's a good question because this is things that's happening to good people all the time, right? If you go to the courthouse, divorce courthouse, you see good people there, right? It's not just a bunch of it's not just a bunch of bad people in divorce court, right? You never thought about that before, right? Yeah, it's good people, right? That simply find themselves in this not so good situation. Anyway, withdrawal. Now you're dealing with withdrawal. Yeah, it's another form of rejection, right? They're withdrawing, they shut down in the middle of sentences, right? Because the interaction they have with you feels increasingly consequential, right? It feels like, remember what I was saying about there's a need, there's a clingy thing that they feel. That wasn't your intentions, you're right, but the point here is that that's what they feel, right? So they're actively trying to actually protect the little bit of distance that they have, right? But you are trying to, and the more you try to do that, there's resistance, right? They're aggressively trying to protect the little bit of distance that they have. Like, for example, they go to work, they don't want to come back home. They kind of want to come back and see the kids, obviously, but it's confusing, right? That's why they sit in the car a little bit and wonder, like, oh my God, I'm about to go in the house. You didn't do anything wrong, but your marriage is not in the place where it used to be, right? So, like I was saying, even when you're at work, you send a text message they send you send like a long thesis of message explaining yourself, complaining at the same time, right? But they answer you with one word, one short reply, right? The conversations are weird and they are definitely less frequent. Withdrawal, right? They avoid any topics, any environment that reminds them of their romantic relationship with you. All of this is making you feel rejected. Distance, right? Distance. No warmth, no reciprocity. And by the way, you're still showing up as a good partner. You're still trying to do the right thing. As a matter of fact, you resent that you're doing so much, but you're looking at your marriage and you're like, you know what? I need to fix this marriage. It's everything. I have everything at stake. I need to fix this, right? So that distance looks like it becomes additional evidence that your original fear was correct. Remember, you had fear, right? This is why you were panicking from the very beginning, right? So over here, you have fear as well. By the time you get to distance, this is confirming your greatest fear. This is confirming it, right? And when it confirms fear, what happens, right? You do more chasing because you desperately need to fix the marriage. And the cycle kind of like feed on itself. It's just sort of big, yeah. Right, so now the new distance that you're experiencing by going through this process, this crazy loop, this crazy cycle, right? It produces additional need for space because basically they're resisting, it's creating resistance, right? They need more space, and at the very minimum, it makes the existing space feel wider. Mental, you'll feel disconnect, even wider disconnect from your partner. So, and that panic is even harder to handle and then you chase harder, and then you create more pressure, and then you interpret the resulting withdrawal as proof that you should even try harder. And eventually something have to break that cycle. If you don't break the cycle, something will have to break the cycle. And the problem is not that you care too much about your marriage. Because I hear people all the time, they will come to this hasty conclusion. That's not nice when I call it hasty conclusion, because I'm sure you've gone through a lot. But let's just call it that, right? People come to a hasty conclusion that, you know what? They love bad boys. Women love bad boys. Or men just like women that show them trouble, right? Because you feel as though you've been nice, you've been kind, you've given it your all, but it's not meeting up to whatever standard. It's not, the results are still terrible, they're bad. So it's not that you care, I'm telling you right now, it's not that you care too much about your marriage. The problem actually begins with fear, with panic, right? And that's replacing what we call self-leadership, right? It's basically making the decision for you of when's the right timing to do, what's the right thing. And it's not about you not fighting for your marriage. It's about knowing how to fight. Yeah. It's about knowing how to fight. It's not good enough that you're a good person and you just know how to assert what you want. That's not good enough, obviously. Just look at your evidence. It's not good enough. You need skills. Once you find yourself in this space where your wife is asking you for space, you definitely need some kind of skills. And it cannot be as simple as just being a good person. I'm not sure if you're still at that level of delusion, but clearly it's not working. And I know you're much more intelligent than that, right? Now, giving someone space is not giving up on your marriage. No, it's not. Giving the fear control of your life, of how you move, of your behavior, is essentially giving up on leadership, giving up your leadership, right? Giving up your self-leadership. And they can smell it. Now, this person, you might be stuck on what they did wrong, right? Defensiveness is one of the 4 predictors of divorce. They didn't say defensiveness when you're rightfully doing it. Just defensiveness, period. Sometimes you're right. You just know that you're right. But clearly, you're not sure that you're right. So you keep making arguments and you keep getting defensive. And then the conversation derails into further criticism and contempt and, right? And eventually stonewalling, and you have all 4. And in due time, you're going to be in a divorce court. And all of this has nothing. None of this has anything to do with being a bad person. It has everything to do with you don't know what you're doing. You lack skills. All right? You lack skills, precisely. So if you recognize yourself in this cycle, this crazy cycle, this crazy funny shaped cycle, if you recognize yourself in this cycle, the difficult question is not simply, should I give them space? No. The difficult question is, what does appropriate space look like in your marriage? How often should you communicate, and what should that communication look like? What about the children and household responsibilities, right? When do you respond with warmth? When are mixed signals meaningful, right? Because often, like if somebody is outrightly decided to leave the marriage, they would have left. But for some reason, they're still getting value in staying, even if it's as simple as they're confused, right? But they're still there, right? So when are you turning crumbs into reconciliation? Because sometimes you're just so quick, you're ready, you get overly excited, you want reconciliation. Well, sometimes you get that reconciliation, but it doesn't last, right? Because you didn't do the work. You jumped way too soon into conclusion. So they're confused. They're going back and forth. And what does that do? It makes you resent yourself even more. So at what point does reducing pressure become emotional disappearance? Because if you do too much of that as well, or you're playing games, like mind games, that can easily backfire. Those answers depend on actual structure of your crisis. Depends on what type of crisis you found yourself. If you can see yourself, however, in everything I've described so far, I would advise you to go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. and book a private discovery session. And what will happen? Well, we will spend 60 minutes together and determine. Where is it? Can't find it. All right. All right. We will spend 60 minutes together. Okay. And I can help you separate the fear-driven activities from useful actions and determine what personal leadership looks like in this stage that your marriage is actually in right now. Yeah, it's critical. It's critical. Just go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery and then we'll take it from there. But before we end today, I definitely want to show you the prestige stability cycle. I want to show you what we call the prestige stability cycle. The prestige stability cycle. Why stability? Well, I mean, you tell me, does it feel like chaos right now at this point? Let's get into it. Now, the same trigger. Right now, we're talking about your wife wants space, right? Or your husband. It could be your husband. Now, is your marriage actually heading into divorce? That's what we're talking about, right? So the prestige stability cycle is also triggered by space. All right, somebody's asking for space, and of course you're confused because, like, you say, what space? What? We're married. What do you mean space? What kind of space do you need? You need a girl's trip? You need a boy's trip? Exactly. What are you talking about? Now, let me share something with you. You have two options, right? You have space, and then you have two options. You can go in the direction of panic, or you can go in the direction of money. No, I'm just kidding. Not money. Not money. Grounding. Okay, grounding, and that's the path that I want to show you right now. Okay, I want to show you now. This is easier said than done. The easy route is panic. Okay, this one is easy, but grounding is not easy. Okay, now excuse me, if you go to grounding here, right, and from grounding we're able to navigate our way to purpose. Grounding is our first core pillar in our framework. All right, and purpose is our second core pillar. I'll explain them in a minute here. From purpose, you're able to navigate to leadership. Okay, and when I say leadership, I'm talking about let's not make that. I'm talking about self-leadership. Okay, this is not the moment of a man is a leader. None of that. Okay, all that is lame talking points. Like headship of a man in a household and family. Those are lame talking points. This is irrelevant. Your marriage is in a state of crisis. That's the last thing you should be talking about, because clearly your leadership failed if you're a man. But even if you're a woman, your self-leadership most likely failed as well. But we're talking about leadership. In when we say leadership, we mean self-leadership. Okay. Now, let me move this down a little bit. Now, from self-leadership, you're able to create. Now, what are you able to create from self-leadership? You're able to create value. Oh yeah, but what happened to moral value? Everybody knows what they're doing. You know what the right thing to do. So what's the issue? Yeah, what's the issue? I'm asking you directly. What's the issue, right? Anyway, no, you're probably creating value for the first time in your life. Everything you had before that fell on your lap by mistake. Novelty, newness, excitement. You didn't know what you were doing. That's all right. All of us went through that, okay? But anyway, now value, and when you start creating value, naturally that leads to curiosity, which is essentially attraction, which obviously was lost in your marriage. Because if anybody who is attracted to you, yes, even we're talking romantically speaking, the last thing they want to do is run away from a marriage with you. Okay, They're not running. Like there's nobody that's attracted to you. There's no somebody that like you. There's no person in a friendship. There's no one in a friendship, authentic friendship with you that's trying to exit your marriage. Okay, you might have been friends before, but clearly that's not the state where things are right now. So to get back into this state, you have to go through this process. Let me trying to create some space here so that I can. All right, so you have curiosity, right? And from curiosity, we'll go to what we call discernment. So we're not just going to get overly excited here, because remember, we're building something that's grounded for the first time ever. Okay, what you had before was, okay, you married somebody, you fell in love, you were in love, and then that faded away, as it should, because clearly that wasn't going to stand the test of time. Okay, I don't care how long you've been doing it for, it clearly wasn't good enough. Okay, so now we have discernment. You're able to discern. Okay, so if they're showing some kind of reciprocity of affection and things like that, you don't get overly excited. You now know what to do with that. You now build something solid for the first time. What is that? So why do we need to do that? Because occasionally there will be drift, there will be space, there will be withdrawal. You know exactly what to do. Instead of going in the direction of panic, you go in the direction of grounding. So discernment is what helps you reconnect back to grounding whenever necessary. So either you're dealing with space, either you're dealing with space, or you're seeing something that's not familiar, you know how to go to grounding as opposed to go in the direction of panic. If this is making sense, make sure you hit the like button. Now, I want to break this down, so make sure that we have a full understanding of what this is. So they're asking for space. You take the request seriously without immediately converting it to a final verdict on your marriage, right? Space is information. They're asking for space is information. Okay, it's a signal. Okay, it's a signal telling you that this person no longer wants to be in this marriage. Something happened. Instead of going the panic direction, things like, oh, I must have married the wrong person, oh, their family did this because of our sister. All that is panic stuff. Okay, you're able to go back to grounding. You take it as information. You take it as a signal of the state, the present condition of your marriage. It's not your permission to predict the entire future of your marriage. Actually, you never really had that capacity anyway, but panic will make you feel, it will make you start going crazy, right? And again, it's not just you, it's the rest of us. Now, grounding, right? Before making any kind of permanent decisions, right? Before you make any kind of permanent emotional decisions, you return back to gratitude, to yourself, the center, your higher self, God, gratitude, emotional stability, whatever you want to call it. What that means is that certain things you don't have control of. There are many things in life you don't have control of, right? Instead of attempting to have control of it, which makes you show up as somebody with controlling behavior, you hand it over to your higher self to worry about that. And there's some things you can control. You stabilize yourself enough so that you can take control of the things you can control. What do we call that? We call that leadership, right? So you're able to remain centered, right? So that you can actually take control of the things that are still within your power. And there's so many things. And what happens is that panic will take away your ability to do that. But grounding will actually give you capacity. You stabilize yourself around what remain yours to lead. All right. So now that allows you to move with purpose, pain-driven purpose. Without the experience that you're going through right now, you wouldn't be able to comprehend this next step. Okay. You know, when people say self-discovery and they want to self-discover outside of marriage, and it's about marriage, it's confusion at best. Okay. You don't know what you're discovering, right? People say, well, you should know yourself. Like, listen, all right? You should know yourself, absolutely. But you might just be playing from a very unrealistic place, okay? If you don't know what you don't know, if you never put yourself out there, if you're not willing to take risk, you're not going to experience certain parts of this life. You're probably not going to be able to build purpose. So when I say pain-driven purpose, you have a frame of reference. You've known what it feels like when you go the panic route. and you know you failed. So now we're going to flip that failure, right? We're going to flip that failure into success. And all of that, does that not sound like purpose? Now you're being purposeful about your marriage, which starts with self, right? For the first time, as opposed to running around the internet calling people narcissists, you're able to reflect back to self because you have that level of power, even though you might have not been aware of it, right? Which is why someone else will feel the need or will think they can take advantage of you or take you for granted. But anyway, purpose is what we're talking about, right? Instead of spending every waking hour monitoring your husband, your wife, snooping around, buying gadgets, trying to buck the house, buck the car, right? You redirect your pain into meaningful responsibilities. Like what? Like yourself, self-love, self-respect, your children, your faith, work, finances, your life mission, your purpose, your calling. Yes, every human being has a calling over their head, but you might be disconnected from that because you're obsessed with somebody who rejected you. I get it, but it's time to call it back to order, right? Your friendships, even if it's just your friendship with your estranged partner, right? You need to start from a place of friendship. You go back to the basics, and then you can start building from a place of purpose, right? Your self-development. Your marriage remains important, yes, but it shouldn't be your source of identity. What happens is that you end up depleting anything good from that marriage when you don't show up as your full, authentic, wholesome self. Doesn't mean you're complete. It just means you're on that journey. You're that purposeful, okay? So, and that helps you with leadership. Now you can make decisions according to the reality as opposed to the panic, which is fear, which is false evidence appearing real. Now you have self-leadership. Self-leadership, guys. You're able to make decisions according to reality. You see for what it is. They ask you for space. Ouch. Painful, great. Opportunity, painful. Let's flip this pain into purpose. You're not going to be able to do that without grounding. Okay? You're not going to be able to do it without finding your source of truth. Notice I didn't say truth. I said source of truth. It needs to be properly identified so that you can actually take control from a place of purpose. A lot of word salad, but I want you to get used to those words because those words are very, very important as opposed to panic, right? So value, when you start showing up consistently over a period of time, you start showing new patterns, right? Self-respect, that is perceived as valuable as opposed to what is out there in the streets. The streets loves nobody. Don't let them deceive you. The streets is for the devourers, the enemy. They're looking for things to devour, right? You end up in the streets, yes, it can be very tough. Sometimes that's the only options available, but most times it's just self-work. Just have to do some self-work and then you'll be okay. Majority of people, they're going to end up in the streets when they find themselves in this bad place, okay? But lucky you, you're here today. So value, what we mean by value is not just moral values, okay? Moral value is bare base minimum. You're supposed to have that. Your parents trained you. You know how to not cheat, don't steal, don't lie, do the right thing, treat others, treat your friends, treat your neighbors like you would like to be treated yourself. All that is nice and cute, and you should do those things. But clearly, there are many people doing those things and they end up in divorce court. So when we say value, we're talking about the very reason why somebody would deem it absolutely insane. They have to consider themselves stupid, insane to go out in the street as opposed to being with you. That position, that place of value, the one that creates curiosity and attraction is what I'm talking about. You become increasingly competent, centered, and emotionally sustainable as a self. And obviously, everybody wants to be a part of that. They want to take care of you. You learn how to take care of yourself. Suddenly, they want to take care of you because you no longer need them before you take care of yourself. You're not coming off as clingy, as needy. They want space. Say, I understand. Let me know when you do change your mind. It's tough. It's difficult. I'm sad, but I understand. You're able to acknowledge the state of things, but you give them the freedom, the space to be able to recenter themselves, then find them their way back to you, and then you can decide for yourself if you want them or not. See how that works? Attraction. Value affects the energy you bring into every interaction. It shows up as confidence. Confidence is always sexy. You become less suffocating, you become less frantic, and more alive. Everybody wants to be a part of that party. Okay? So if you don't know how to find yourself back to that place, then you see what you're seeing. Now, some people it's spiritual, it's because village people are chasing after you. It's a lie. It's because you've lost yourself in that process. Okay? Attraction here is not a trick for controlling somebody else. Okay, it is a natural social consequence of becoming a more grounded and sustainable human being. Everybody if you don't need people, they suddenly want to be a part of your world. That's just how it works. Okay, that's scientific. That's how it works. And then you have discernment. You observe what is actually happening before you get overly excited. You kind of know why it's happening because you have the confidence and you've been doing the work and you can see it happening, but you stay calm. You stay cool, calm, collected. You make sure you understand before you get excited. You celebrate. You don't get overly excited. You celebrate if there's a need to celebrate. If you're able to rekindle your marriage, sure, why not? But you understand that no condition is permanent. That's what every winners understand. Losers think conditions are permanent. Winners understand that no condition is permanent, right? So a pleasant conversation is not necessarily reconciliation, right? Because hey, we're not just going to deal with people that are not sure of themselves. If they can just outrightly call quits on your marriage in the first place, they need to win you back now because you no longer need them. It doesn't mean you're playing games or you're not playing hard to get or anything like that. It just means you're intentional. You stay centered always, right? Because you recognize that you're a human being, they're a human being. You get to decide what you want, they get to decide what they want, but you get to influence them because you know what you're doing. Influence, not control, influence. Right? Because you know what you're doing, you smell good. Well, not physically smell, but anything about you just looks like they want to be a part of it, right? And it's even easier if there's ever been that experience in that marriage in the first place, because oftentimes people are being through that, where everybody is excited, they're in love, but then life happens, complacency, and then they fell out of love. If you've ever been there before, this is easy. You can easily wake this up. All right, it is simple, maybe not necessarily easy. Okay, it's easier said than done. Okay, but it's very simple. You just have to get on the journey, right? So what if you had a cold day? It doesn't automatically mean divorce, right? They want a little bit of room to breathe. It doesn't mean divorce. You don't start panicking, right? They're requesting for space does not mean that you vanish and start playing games. It means like, I need space too. What do you mean? You need space? Oh, sure. Let me know. I got some work to do. Now, do you just automatically fall into that place? No, if you've been experiencing rejection, this is hard. It's easier said than done. But it's doable when you engage your life mission, your life work, your purpose. When you're grounded, it is absolutely doable. And the more you do it, practice makes perfect. It gets easier, right? And then everybody else, the losers, will say, oh, he's just lucky. They say, you're just lucky. Yeah, right. Right. So you respond to patterns. You don't respond to small little signals. Just because somebody is moody does not mean anything to you, except you're open. You're open to taking care of them, because if this is your wife or your husband, obviously it's okay for them to have moody moments, right? But you have enough in you to pour into them, as opposed to becoming enough clingy and needy and all this kind of stuff, which would naturally happen when you're panicking, especially if there's divorce looming around your marriage, right? Because you know exactly why you're here. Let's not lie to ourselves, right? So you understand that any engagement needs to be voluntary. As a matter of fact, you enjoy that more than anything else. Like you want them to have the autonomy, agency to decide to come back into the marriage the right way, especially when they feel safe. So understanding the difference between space and abandonment is one thing. Okay, that's it right there on the board. I hope you got some value out of that. But applying it when your wife is barely responding, when your husband has moved out, when divorce has been mentioned, or you're watching every text messages for signs of reconciliation. Like hopefully they come back to you, right? It's different when you're actually living in that. So implementation requires discernment, accountability, and you need to know which responsibilities still require contact, which conversations are creating unnecessary pressure, and how much voluntary investment your husband or your wife is actually showing. You need to be able to recognize these things in real time, or whether your behavior is coming from a grounded interest or fear. You need to be able to know these things. So if that's something you're willing to discover, just go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Getmymarriageback.com/discovery and book a private discovery session, and we can help you examine your specific marriage, identify the patterns you can control, and build a strategy you can actually sustain through the uncertainty. All right, so you don't want to be measuring your commitment to your marriage by how hard you chase someone who asked for space. If you keep doing that, obviously the panic gets bigger and bigger. You want to measure it by how well you can love yourself, which means you're able to pour love into another person. How well you can lead yourself, which means you have the capacity to lead other people without much effort, with almost no effort, right? Because you know how to lead yourself, right? You are able to respond to reality without abandoning either them or yourself. Because this is the tricky part here, right? People will start coming up with weirdo topics like you should love. Yes, they might say like, oh, you should only get with a woman who loves you more than, like all this weird stuff, right? A woman who loves you more than you love them, like this competition thing, right? If you're in this place of competition or you have a defeatist mindset, it's no wonder you're experiencing what you're experiencing. Let me just say that, right? You're creating exactly the result that you created. It is all you. All right. The goal is not to become so detached. They asked for space. You don't want to come off as detached, right? You do want to come off as confident. You do want to come off as you're not waiting. You do want to come off as the doors are open, but also just for the time being, because nobody just sits around waiting for another human being to determine. However, if your life is interwoven together, like children, finances, and stuff like that, there's no need to panic or make hasty conclusions and decisions anyway, But definitely when it comes, you feel like you've lost yourself. You feel like you're not able to, or you're always coming from this place of panic, and you're sending text messages, explaining, complaining, getting defensive. If you're doing that, then it's emergency. Emergency about what? It's not about the marriage. It's about you. You've lost yourself. It's about you, and you will create a terrible marriage. I'm not surprised if you create a terrible marriage from that space. So it's not about it's not about outrightly becoming so detached that you stop caring about your marriage. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding that a funky self version of yourself will create a funky marriage, right? It's about understanding that. And it's about understanding that there's no end to that kind of work. It's something you should always pay attention to for the rest of your life. Because remember, no condition is permanent. Maybe you find yourself in this space because you just got complacent. You just got too comfortable. And if you're going to grow in anything in life, you're going to build anything worthwhile in life, you're going to be a winner with anything in life, you understand that you cannot be complacent. You can't afford it. You're probably going to be complacent by default because you're a human being, but you need to catch it as soon as you can possibly catch it and get back to work. You can rest from a proactive standpoint. You can say, babe, I need some time off. You can say, I need to go lay down upstate. You can say things like that. Okay, like, you know what, let's take a vacation. You can be proactive. But complacent, like just leaving things in the hands of fate, Fate, that's what losers do. Okay? That's what they do. And I know you're not a loser, But to be fair, all of us have been through situations where we're oblivious to what is actually going on with the other person. And so by the time they start expressing how they feel, what happened, where they started building resentment, it's like, I didn't know that was going on. Or some people will just get defensive and just outrightly say that doesn't exist. You're lying. How many times have you told your partner you're a liar, or they told you you're a liar? Just straight up tell you you're a liar because they're not open to the fact, the reality that you might be having two different experiences in that same marriage. Right? They call it, no, let's just call it a spade a spade. They're not open to the idea that they actually can't see everything. But anyway, if that's your story, I would love to work with you. If today's lesson helped you, I appreciate if you would like this video, if you would subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. And I'll see you on our next video. Walk around, go around this channel. There's tons of videos here that can really help you. But if you're looking for me to work with you immediately, you're looking for me, just go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery, and I'll help you. Okay. Hopefully you've been enlightened, educated. Take care, and God bless. Bye now.
Are you fighting to save a marriage or a relationship, or simply avoiding to end up in a broken or toxic one?
We've been there, and you're in the right place. You see, inside this book, right, you will find and you will discover the secret to save a broken marriage, and you will learn how to build and attract the marriage of your dream.